Hi everybody. This is the second time I've done this. A problem, an internal error occurred on the last one, and anyway, I'm just going to be looking a little bit at classical records, what to look out for. You come across them very often, and you're looking in charity shops and stuff, and some are more valuable than others, just some are better than others, etc., etc. So we're just going to have a quick look through at what's to look out for a classical record, what makes a classical record collectible, etc. So anyone who's not interested in classical, look away now. It's scary now. And we're going to start with this. Not a very impressive looking record at all. Very dull cover. But this is on the Decca label. Stereo. And this is key. When you're looking for classical records, if you're looking for quality and collectability, stereo is very important. Not every record was released as a stereo release. This is at the dawn of stereo. This is 1957. Now, if we look at it, there's no spine as such. There's nothing to read there. It's really very thin. The detail is on the back. And you see this tiny little tape around the edge. Very, very flimsy cover. So this is what we're looking for. We're looking for this inner bag with FFSS, full frequency stereophonic sound. This label, this is a black label, Decca, and that's for wideband stereo, they call it. Now, you'll see a couple more of these as I go through. There may be a little bit of repetition here, but you'll see why there's some variations. But this is the kind of thing we're looking out for. We're looking for this inner bag and the classic Decca label. And SXL is the prefix to the number. It's on the front of these early ones. SXL. That's a number which will pop up every now and then. The letter prefiguration. Here is one from the following year. Now, you see this symbol as well. They've changed it. It didn't last too long. But this is 1958. Decca Stereophonic, SXL, 2001. This is the 1812 Overture. And here on the back here, you see a variation in design. Another sort of tape thing, very thin, no spine to read as such. So you have to pull your record out to see what it is. But again, a very similar cover, a very similar, very similar unboxed Decca. Although that one has the FFSS above the Decca. So again, you can get these on mono, but the mono is not where it's at. Stereo, stereo, stereo with the early, in the main, with the early classical records. Here's an example on EMI HMV. Now, noticeably, there's a nice gold, this is 1958 as well, and there's a very obvious gold sticker here, or emblem, whatever. Stereophonic recording. And this is another set of letters to look out for, ASD on this label. Now, ASD, not as valuable generally. There are some exceptions, but they're not necessarily as valuable as for Decca and the Columbia that we're going to look at in a minute. Again, but what is people are looking for here is this. Now, if I can get that, can I get that close? It's a gold, it's not very shiny up. I don't know if you can see that very well. It's a gold and red and white stereo HMV label, the first stereo labels that they produced. Wonderful stuff, something to look out for. because the quality found on these pressings is absolutely immense. I'm going to race through. Now here we have two very similar looking records. This is Schubert's Symphony in C Major, the Great, Otto Klemperer, Philharmonia Orchestra. One is mono, one is stereo. And on the back, you'll see a difference. There's a difference in the coding. SAX is for stereo, and that's the one the collectors want. That's what we're looking for. 33CX are mono. Now, as I said, not every release was released on stereo and mono. Some are just purely on mono. I don't believe there are any which are purely stereo at this stage. It's either mono or mono and stereo. And there's a big and easy way to tell the difference, even without this, the record itself. Now, this is the highly desirable. Oh, can I get that to look good, to look right? Blue and silver Columbia stereophonic label. Oh, it's so tough in this lighting. Now that is completely different to the 33CX label, which has a rather lovely inner bag there. But you see the difference in the labels. I mean, it's incredibly different. There's the blue Columbia mono. I see if I hold it here, it might actually show up better. This is what you see most of the time, the 33CXs. Because at the time, of course, people didn't really have stereo record players. It was a brand new innovation, and most people obviously had mono. And mono, obviously, at the time as well, was a cheaper option before the stereos became very common, of course, later in the 60s. But obviously, all throughout the 60s, mainly it was mono recordings. But with classical music, there were quite a lot of stereo releases, unlike in the pop music world. Okay, this is a very famous and desirable record. Now, again, it's easy to think, oh, I've found an absolute gem here. But it's mono. This is the gem, the stereo. This is the one where the value is. They both look so similar. Nothing's different apart from that coding again. And again, at this point, the blue and silver, there we go. The blue and silver label, and there's the inner. The blue and silver label is the one you're looking for. As they went on, they changed from the blue and silver and released red label. And there are different variations of the red labels. But this is the one that everyone is looking for. This particular record is probably £200 to £300 worth. Whereas this one is probably £10 worth. There's a big difference. It's not all about the value, of course, but the quality, again, of the sound of those records is what people are looking for. But then the later pressings as well were not badly pressed at all by any imagination, a stretch of the imagination. This is Schumann stereo, same thing again. SAX 2485. But you see, this also is a stereo, slightly smaller lettering, a little bit like the Beatles, all those different variations you had of mono and stereo up on the white band. When you pull it out, because if you think, oh wow, I've got a classic blue and silver. When you pull it out, it's a later pressing on the red Columbia. And this is the first of a red Columbia. So you've got the Columbia coming around halfway here like a crescent shape. But later, you'll see a box, which is even later. And this, we're looking at value of records here, and the value is in the early again. Here's another example. There are a whole load of these. This is Beethoven's number 6, Otto Klemperer. SAX 2260. And so is this. Gold sticker, slightly different size. I also have another one of these, and it's a very, very thin paper cover, and the laminate's coming off. But here, red. Blue and silver. And that is, again, a marked difference for collectors. A bit like, you know, it's the same with popular music, as everyone wants the first pressings for some reason. It's the same with book collectors, you want the first edition. And this is something you see listed. When you see classical records listed, you'll see not first pressing, you'll see Ed 1, Ed 2 as an ED, edition 1, edition 2, edition 3. Because some of these look like they're edition 1. And I'll show one a bit later, but there's an infinitesimal difference between edition 1 and edition 2 in a lot of cases. But the difference, if you're looking to sell records, can be a difference between like £20 and £100, just because of one little code or one little digit. You know, we know what it's like as collectors. Now, there's a whole load of these records. Obviously, there's a whole series. But again, this SAX 2354, but on the red, so not the first press. Here's symphonies 1 and 8, but this is 33CX, so we're going back to Columbia mono. And another, this one is the number 3. This is a CX mono, and this is a particularly nice find. I don't see this one every day. This is number 7, and this is SAX. This is the first on the blue and silver. So you can see what I mean. There's a blue and silver, red, etc., etc. There's a difference between them. I'm going to show a couple more examples because this is just repetition. I'm going to keep this short so that people can use it later. Here is Klemperer conducts Wagner, again, blue, 33CX. And there are a couple in this. This is another example, but with mono written at the top. Another, and here's SAX, blue and silver. And there are 2347, 2348. This happened a lot. You see a lot of record 1, set 1 of 2, etc. Record 1 of set 2, blah blah. Here is Klemperer conducts Wagner mono. Klemperer conducts Wagner, more Wagner stereo, and it's the same thing applies. CX, SAX. You know, and keep repeating it, but you get the idea now. This record, Beethoven, Piano Concerto number 5, The Emperor. This is SXL. Again, another nice thing to look out for. But again, and this is on the lovely, this is a black bag unusually instead of a blue one on the Decca label. This is edition 1, and the only reason this is edition 1 is because of the matrix. And also here, it says original recording by on the label, and I believe the other one says an EMI recording or an English recording, something like that. And so that one little difference elevates this way above the others, which is actually, you know, it's fairly easy to kind of come by this cheaply. But to find the first edition, which this one is almost impossible. That one little difference, as we all know, makes all our difference. I'm just going to show 2 or 3 more bits before this finishes. There are some wonderful box sets. Mahler Symphony Number 2, particularly impressive symphony. This is Salty. You can see here, this is a purple label Decca, full frequency stereophonic sound, another first press. And maybe sometimes the best way to buy these records is in some of the box sets, because they tend to be maybe, I don't know why, but they tend to be reasonably cheap in comparison to the original first presses. Here's just a few more just to show you. Stereo, again another rare record of the SA Accents Blue and Silver. This one, again, a very valuable record if it's your first. This is not the first. And you'll see a difference here. There's a Box to Decca, which is a later press, a bit like with the Rolling Stones again. So you can see that's something to look out for. It's still a desirable record, but nowhere near as desirable as the first. Let's show a couple more of these box sets. This one's a nice one. Sibelius 7 Symphonies. And of course, the nice thing about the box sets, as we all know, very comprehensive books. I'm showing this because it's a slightly more unusual blue-grey, sort of RAF blue, box Decca again. But that, I believe, is still a first pressing, this one. It just happened to be pressed later, that was all. Show a couple more. This is a CBS box set. I just think it's a very impressive cover. This is Mahler's Ninth Symphony, Leonard Bernstein. CBS, although their records are good and they sound good, they don't command the same value and same prices as the Columbias and Deccas, the early ones. But some of these symphonies are amazing. Bernstein's second and fourth, I think, and I believe the fifth, very, very good recordings, exceptional. So, yeah, maybe I'll leave it at that because I could go all day. But that's it. That gives you an idea of what to look out for with classical records, and I'll leave it at that and say thank you and see you later.